Households across Britain are facing yet another increase in their energy bills. From October, the country's regulator has now raised the energy price cap, meaning that average gas and electricity bills will now be over $4,000 US. This is what is now being dubbed as the average electricity cost in Britain. Now, the current cap is $2,700 or £1,971, and that's a rise of almost about 80%. And it comes as the United Kingdom is grappling with an ongoing cost of living crisis. Soaring energy bills have fueled rampant inflation, which has breached nearly about 10% last month, and it is predicted to climb over 18% by January, February next year. This is going to be the inflation rate in Britain. The new cap will affect nearly about 24 million households. That's about 85% of the British population. Ofgem, United Kingdom's regulator, has said that it cannot give projections for the next price cap change next year because the market remains very volatile. But one thing is certain, that energy prices are all set to get way worse in 2023. Now, experts fear that the near doubling of the price cap is likely to tip millions of people into fuel poverty, who would be forced to choose between having enough to eat or to heat up their homes in sub-zero temperatures once the winter sets in. The news has sparked a sharp outcry from charities who've said that families across the country have faced one of the bleakest Christmas in years. Meanwhile, Ofgem's announcement puts more pressure on the crippled government to introduce further measures to help households. Now, the winner of the Tory leadership contest between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak will of course be expected to announce a plan shortly after the race concludes on the 5th of September.
It's the summer, the heating's not on, but we know that people aren't cooking food, aren't washing clothes, aren't giving their children a shower or a bath, cooking only with the kettle. Huge amounts of privation which affect the quality of life. When we head into the winter, into the heating season, that's when it gets absolutely drastic. That's when we know that people will either heat a room in a house for an hour or two a day, not heat at all. There would be some really desperate and dangerous, we call them coping mechanisms, but they're not about coping. They're about trying to survive. So it's bad now. We head into winter. It gets worse then.
So it's not coping, it's actually surviving, which is going to be the challenge in front of the British people. Now, this announcement, of course, follows reports from the Institute for Government, which has said that gas and electricity prices over the course of the next 2 years could cost the government about $118 billion. Now, that is more than it has spent on paying salaries of millions of people during the pandemic. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of how bad the situation in Britain actually is and how much way worse things can actually get in Britain, we're being joined by our correspondent Alex Iszatt, who's joining us live from London. Now, Alex, this is a very difficult and almost a very tricky situation for the people in Britain. Millions of people are expected to be what is being described as, being pushed into fuel poverty. They'd have to make the choice, the difficult choice between having enough to eat or heating up the homes. At this point of time, is the government expected to make any announcements?
Well, there should be an announcement later by Boris Johnson, although he is obviously leaving his position as Prime Minister, so we aren't expecting another announcement from Liz Truss, but Sunak has yet to say anything with regards to this rise in costs, which was actually expected. So we were looking to see this rise in costs, but not as much as we actually have at the moment. Obviously, the government has put in those schemes, energy support schemes, so from October you can get £400, and obviously those on low incomes will be able to get a £1,200 package. But that's mostly for the most vulnerable and those on low incomes. So those on middle incomes will face an extra squeeze. They're the ones that are going to be really struggling as we go forward through December, and then it will be an up again from the 1st of January. We're going to see another rise. So we're not even sure that this is the end of the increase of bills.
I think that's the crux of the entire issue, that we do not know if it's going to, go up higher. Now, at this point of time, Alex, the fact is the energy prices will go up by almost about 80%, and winter, of course, sets in by November in Britain. So how many people will actually have access to heating that they can use in their homes?
Well, everyone will still have the access, it's just whether or not they can afford to pay for it. There's a company at the moment that is going out there saying that don't pay for your bills. Obviously, that's not necessarily good either. I think the problem is that people are going to be trying to figure out how to save money. But again, it's just going to be like the little savings here and there. Ultimately, they are looking for the government to make these changes. And at the moment, as a Labour MP said this morning, they seem to have been doing absolutely nothing. This trust did put out a statement, a written statement, where she came up with platitudes about what she might do if she gets in charge. But ultimately, they have no actual policies or anything really set in place to help the average person on that middle income, those on low income or those on benefits who haven't been paying the taxes that other people have, will still be going along their normal lives, but other people who will see this price rise in food and fuel and electricity and gas will be the ones that really struggle.
Absolutely indeed, but we've been talking predominantly about what is likely to happen with the price of fuel and gas. But the overall inflation rate in Britain is likely to peak at about 18% sometime by early next year. That would mean that for a lot of people, especially in the low-income groups, even things like food and other essential items will also become very expensive.
That's right. Well, Citibank has given that prediction. So they aren't in charge of the inflation. So that is their prediction. Obviously, the Bank of England suggests that we're going to come to a recession at the end of the year. And they're still suggesting we're going to be about 13% inflation. Obviously, neither of these are good for anybody, really, who is trying to just get by. We're seeing wholesale prices go up. And that's where it really, the crux of the matter really comes in. So when wholesale prices go up, then the suppliers that bring it to the consumers also want to get profits. So then they are also rising their prices and it's going down to the consumer. I'm talking about the energy price cap that people keep talking about and freezing it. Well, we're only freezing it on the supplier's end. So they're still going to get a 2p profit from every pound that every person in the UK spends. And obviously the producers are going to be getting the most profits. At the moment, we're already seeing like millions and millions of pounds that the producers have got in profits for the past year, where people on the ground are still struggling. It looks like we're going to have this huge economic crisis, and not just for the lower incomes, but generally for most people. There's going to be a real financial issue here.
Absolutely indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Alex Iszatt, for joining us from London and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.